Last time we fought this battle 20 years ago, there were disconnections, and it was a real ordeal trying to get people reconnected or preventing it from happening. So that's a major significant victory that we scored. So look, I think the last thing that occurs to me really is that I'm fairly confident we're going to win on this, Owen.
For sure.
But I do wonder, how things are going to pan out in Detroit, and we all have to kind of put our heads together here and work out how are we going to help you sustain that struggle. I mean, I do hope the US Embassy, for example, took note of the reception you got over here and the bad publicity that the authorities in Detroit have gotten. We have to kind of think about are there other things we can do, play our own small part in keeping the pressure on the authorities over there for what they're doing. So I think it's all I hope before I go as well.
Just on behalf of the independent group and the City Council, like my colleagues, I want to thank you for making the effort to come over to Dublin and all the places you've visited around Ireland, Cork, Dundalk and all the suburbs of Dublin. But in particular for the energy you brought to this campaign. I was listening to you last night with Vincent Brown, and just to hear that firsthand, I mean, people I'm sure they're listening to you first, they thought it was per year, and he said no, it's per month, the charges that were being levied on people in Detroit, and I think that's a taste of what's to come here in Ireland if we're not careful. And as some of my colleagues have said here, we've seen what's happened. I was elected in 1991 to the City Council, and we had just over 12,000 staff. We've 5,400 now, and with redundancies and with layoffs over the next year, we'll probably be down to about 4,800. So we've seen a huge reduction, while the expectation of people, and quite rightfully so, because they're paying for everything, has increased, and there isn't the services there to go along with it. And we have a phrase in Ireland here, when we had no money we were able to build fine public housing and all. And the last 20 years, when the country's been awash with money, we stopped building anything for the poor and for the working class. And I think you're a testimony to what's possible and the human endeavour, and you do give us all the spirit to move on. Well done, thank you very much for it.
I'll introduce Brendan Ogle. As previous speaker said, it was heartening for us to see the trade union, people from the trade union, really, I suppose, what I would say is at a real school. Really coming up to Connolly and Larkin and all of that. A real school. So Brendan, thanks for coming in, and thanks for all your work on this. It's not over yet, but you'd like to say a few words. Thanks.
And thanks to the Lord Mayor's office for this welcome for the Detroit Water Brigade. That's the second official welcome they've had this week. I think the Taoiseach also welcomed.
He's out at the airport making sure you go home.
I have a feeling, Laurie, I know you a little bit, a few years, I have a feeling there's a lot more sincerity in this welcome than there was in the previous one. It's been an amazing week. For me, for everybody that has met these guys in the public events, but also in private discussing things. I know for Dave, on behalf of Mandate and all of the unions and Right to Water. We initially extended the invitation to the Detroit Water Brigade to meet with us, come with us and share International Human Rights Day. This is not a national event. This is not a national agenda in terms of the water, privatisation of our water. And that's what this is really about. This is international. And we have these four wonderful people with us for the last week, and we also had George. George is from Thessaloniki in Greece with us for a couple of days during the week as well. And when you talk even to somebody from Greece with very little English, it's amazing the similarities of what's happening right across the Atlantic and down into the Aegean Sea. But the most amazing thing for me has been the reaction of the Irish public to these four people. It has been, I'm so proud of the Irish people. I think we lost some of our pride in recent years due to austerity. We were beaten. Well, we weren't beaten, but we were getting beaten up, and a bit of the pep went out of our step, and we shrunk a little bit into ourselves. But that's not what's going on now, and that's not the mood of the Irish people now. Just to remember on Wednesday at the march, and different figures were thrown around, and they're mostly irrelevant, but I think we need to put some context on this. Justin published on the Detroit Water Brigade Facebook page the Right to Water statement, saying there were 100,000 people at the demonstration. And most people in Detroit were putting on messages saying that's amazing and this sort of thing. But you always get other people that say other things. And somebody had picked up on the government's or the Garda statement that there was 35,000. Justin had said 100,000 per head of population would be the equivalent of almost 8 million people walking in Washington. And some person came in and says, please tell the truth. I see a statement from the Garda that it was 35,000. So me and Justin had a conversation. And we said, well, for head of population, 35,000, ridiculous as the figure is, by the way. But what would that be? And that would be about 3 million people walking on Washington. And I said to Justin, have 3 million people ever walked on Washington?
Not at the same time.
And I said, well, what's the most that's walked and when? And Justin and we think, and we came up with the civil rights movement, where over 900,000 people walked on Washington. And even by the extremely conservative estimates of the Garda and the City Council, we had an equivalent per head over 3 million. And we all know that figure is ridiculously low. So what's happening here is amazing. What's happening here is amazing. And to have the Detroit Water Brigade here for the last week to share that with us has been amazing. And I want to thank them for coming. But most I want to thank them, and I've got to know all four of them, I hope, for the absolutely selfless way in which they have engaged with the Irish people. On issues which a lot of people would find quite personal. It's quite personal when your water's cut off and you're a single mom with 5 kids. It's quite personal when your granny's house is demolished and the deed's taken by the City Council because you haven't paid a water bill. It's quite personal when you're giving hoses to people to fill tanks to go and wash your children and prepare food. And it's quite personal when you're getting personal abuse from people who don't see a wider agenda. And you have to keep your head above the parapet, to keep fighting, to keep pushing forward, to do the right thing. And these people have sat down with us, they've sat down with people in the communities, they've sat down with men, women and children, and they have shared those stories and appealed to the Irish people. In a deeply moving way, to not let us go, and I don't mean this in any insulting way, I think the guys know that this at this stage, to not let us go down the road where we could find not only water being shut off, but children and elderly people and disabled people who may have a carer in the house where the water's been shut off, and even children being made wards of court. And I'm not going to want to be sensationalist here, that's not going to happen here next year or even with the next government. But if we go down this road, can anybody in this room say with certainty that 10, 15, 20 years from now, that's not what we're looking at? Because what we've learned from these people is that capitalism will not stop. It does not know where to stop. It doesn't even stop at the right to life, for which water is the essential ingredient. So, your stories have brought that into sharp focus. You've shared it with the Irish people all around Dublin, north, south, east, west. You've gone into the communities. You haven't gone around offices meeting political apparatchiks. And I don't mean that in any negative way to any of the political parties who played a big role in right to water. That's not what I mean. I mean going around meeting ministers, meeting spin doctors. That's not what you've done. You've gone out there into the deepest communities we have in North Dublin, in South Dublin, in Cove, in Cork, in Dundalk, in Balbriggan, and you've sat down in cups of tea, in community halls, eating biscuits, telling your story, and it's been absolutely amazing. Thank you.
Thank Brendan and all your colleagues in the unions for your great effort and your support in this. That's kind of hopefully bringing us back to where we would all want to be eventually. And just a couple of more things. Dean keeps slipping out of the room there, and I wanted to thank him especially for looking after us. So when he comes back in and remind me to thank him. But just a couple of more things to do. Micheál McConaughey, Councillor Micheál McConaughey, a colleague of mine for more years than either of us care to remember. But something when we were speaking there, and I'm looking around at a few people in the room, myself I was involved in a much smaller struggle in a workplace 24 years ago now. Micheál would have been with me, Reid, Joan, I remember, and there was one other who I know was supportive of that struggle.
There's only just 4 people supporting you, you know. Only more than 4 people supporting you, Larry. Never had a Swiss roll since.
But anyway, and I would like, someone mentioned here about people coming together for the first time and are involved in something like this. And Micheál and Breda and John knows that at that time we were a big workforce in there. We'd never had any cause to really be organised in that kind of a way. I always say we were very badly let down by our union at that time. I don't mind saying that, I have said it. But it was amazing to see the people coming from that factory floor outside the gates and getting together and organising. I remember one day on the streets of this city, and mind you, this was 24 years ago, we collected £8,000 in collections from the good people of the city who gave it to us. And I remember sitting and I remember Reid was there, we were counting the money on a big table in the union hall. And I remember remarking to Reid, I'm a long time in this union, I said. At that stage, I was 24 years there. And I said, this is probably the first time I've seen this feckin' hall being used for what it's supposed to be used for. Just a pile of money up on the table, and we were counting and putting it in the bag. And it added up to €8,000. Now, I don't know what that would be given in today's money. Anyway, I just wanted to say that as an aside, that all that goes on. And the people from that bakery came out and got themselves together and, found new talents and all of that. So now, I know Micheál, we started there, this is a long way of introducing him.
Nothing to do with the strike.
Micheál has a presentation to make to the Detroit people here, and it's a bit of a historical connection. So let me.
Thanks, Larry. Well, you've heard tonight a couple of times the name James Connolly mentioned, and I don't think on any demonstration, magnificent demonstration we had the other day, I've heard his name mentioned so many times from a platform, and it was a really great thing. I know Justin, I spoke to Justin on Even More on Monday night. You were aware of James Connolly, but I did a bit of research earlier in the week. As we all know, James Connolly worked in the United States as a political activist, a trade union activist. He also did many speaking tours in the United States. But I found out that his first speaking tour was in 1902, and one of the cities he visited was actually Detroit in December 1902. So, what's that, 112 years ago. This month, James Connolly was speaking to working people in Detroit, which obviously at the time was a massive industrial city. People from all nationalities, all races, including many Irish people. And Connolly stressed in all his work, and actually the reason he was asked to go to America was because to help ensure unity between all the nationalities, all the races who were part of the growing working class across the US. And as I say, Detroit was one of the cities that he visited. So we just did a small presentation for yourselves. It includes a quote from James Connolly. Our demands most moderate are, we only want the earth. And that was in one of the songs he composed. That, we as progressive people, we should never lower our expectations. And his idea was, we only want the earth. And the other quote is in the Irish language, Niarca Corlicala, unity is strength. So I think that says it all. Right. And well done.
so much.
Thank you.
That's a great presentation, isn't it?
One more thing to do before we go.
Yeah. Even not even good over there as well, like.
Little gifts on the mansion house. 4 different groups of Dublin, and a few little mementos in the bottom of the bag. Now, the 4 different groups, so we were having a row about it. You can sort out who it was, what group.
I'll trade them around.
Yeah.
You
can sell them if you want.
Any view on it, so I'm just going to leave go with you, and you can take them away, and then, as I say, either take one each or share them around. I can tell you they're excellent groups.
Thank
I'm
you
not
so
even going to
much.
mention what they're selling.
We do that now.
All
Right. Larry.
But we one last thing. We also have
councillors.
something for you, Mr. Mayor. We thank you so very much for inviting us here, the beautiful country, Austin town, and we just want to drape you. Look, I just love this chain. It's inspiring, you know. But we have a gift for you as well. And as co-founder, chief coordinator of the Detroit Water Brigade, on behalf of all of us, we want to bless you with the honorary member with the pen, a very special pen that we want to put on you. And we make you an honorary member of the Detroit Water Brigade.
Wow.
As representing for the people of Detroit, we thank you so very much for having this. This is such a heart of gold, and as rest of all the Irish people, we just thank you so much for the bottom of our hearts for having our stories here and related to us.
Thank you for that. But, you know, this is maybe, well, it's not so formal. Liam, I wanted to express a note of thanks to yourself for looking after me. I suppose it's a little bit formal with the shape of the building and all.
This is awesome.
But you have been in other places where you were in among the communities and all, you know, and I know as a might say in Dublin, you become feckin' legends.
We are legends. We can take that as well. Thank you so very much, Mr. Mayor.
We go feckin' legends. That's
We have one more night, so there better be a good pub around here.
Well, it's free drink, yeah.
Is the bar still open?
Maybe want to have another drink.
Could we get maybe a group photo with some of the councillors?
Yeah, I don't mind.
What? Can I let go of this now?
Oh, yes.
It's like, it's stuck to my hand. There we go.